judges, chief judges, juries, grand juries, and U.S. attorneys are all part of the resistance against Donald Trump's efforts to indict and prosecute his political rivals or critics. We've got the latest example with chief judge of everything in the D.C. federal court, all grand jury processes, is Chief Judge Booseberg. He determined that the Trump administration can't even meet the basic low threshold to have grand jury subpoenas survive, this time against Donald Trump's political critic, not even a critic, political opponent in the Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell. It's extraordinary. I can't put too fine a point on how extraordinary the chief judge of a district finding that grand jury subpoenas were improperly issued, how extraordinary that is. But let me put it in the context of all of the dozens of cases that Donald Trump's Department of Justice has tried to bring against his political opposites and the results. It's not just chief judges, it's juries, it's grand juries, it's U.S. attorneys working from within, and they're all using whatever tools they have in order to rein in Donald Trump. You're here on the MeidasTouch Network in Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Take a minute, help Legal AF continue to grow as a YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Let's start with the political opponents of Donald Trump. They didn't choose to be. Donald Trump picked them out for various reasons. New York Attorney General Letitia James, former FBI Director James Comey, 6 members of Congress, Senate, and the House who made a 90-second video to remind the troops, remind the military that they have their own constitutional duty to uphold the Constitution and not follow illegal orders. California Senator Adam Schiff, former director of the CIA, John Brennan. Each one of them has had some judge, jury, grand jury, or U.S. attorney bail them out and stand steadfast for the rule of law in our justice system. Let's start with the Judge Curry. Judge Curry, out of the Eastern District of Virginia, or sitting by designation there, she determined that the now disgraced, resigned out of the Department of Justice, Lindsay Halligan, was illegally appointed and threw out the indictments of New York Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud, James Comey for lying to Congress. They tried 2 more times to get Letitia James indicted, one in Norfolk, Virginia, one in Richmond, Virginia. 2 separate grand juries said no. In fact, one of the 2 grand juries wanted to announce and did announce in open court that they refused to indict based on that evidence the New York Attorney General. We're talking about low bars here, basics of prosecution here, but nobody believes the Department of Justice. In order to get an indictment, you have to show to a grand jury, first of all, you have to bring it properly, that there's probable cause that you will sustain a conviction through appeal. You have to prove to a jury just on the lower standard that you have probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed and convince a jury of that based on the evidence that you present without the defense present. And they're not even able to do that. So that's the Judge Curry, former FBI Director Comey, Letitia James Attorney General resolution, combination of Judge Curry and grand juries. Another grand jury would have to consider whether James Comey can be indicted at all. Based on the statute of limitations, they've got about 2 more months left to try to argue to a federal judge that they're not out of time for lying to Congress. I believe they're out of time, that the 5-year statute of limitations has run, and any judge will find that on its face. Maybe that's why we're not hearing about another attempt to indict James Comey. Now let's move on to the 6 members of Congress led by Mark Kelly, Arizona Senator, Elise Slotkin, Michigan Senator, and others. They created a video, Don't Give Up the Ship, reminding fellow members of the military, intelligence community, they swore an oath that cannot follow an illegal order. A grand jury was asked by Pirro, Donald Trump's political ally in the District of Columbia, to bring an indictment against them, and they refused. And now our understanding is that at least Pirro's office is not going to go forward with another indictment. That's a victory for our Department of Justice. Similarly, let's move forward to what Judge Booseberg has done. Judge Booseberg has done something extraordinary. He is, first of all, the chief judge over all things D.C., federal court, which includes grand juries. Donald Trump hates him. Donald Trump doesn't like him because back in March and April of last year, Judge Booseberg started probable cause to find criminal contempt against the Trump administration. He started those proceedings, including against Kristi Noem. The Trump administration brought a claim, a judicial misconduct claim against Judge Booseberg, which was rejected and denied. He is very close to Chief Justice Roberts of the Supreme Court. He was the roommate for Brett Kavanaugh in law school. He was a Republican and Democrat appointee. He's middle of the road, and he is not going anywhere. And yet Donald Trump, late on Sunday night, had the following to say in a rambling Truth Social post. The courts treat Republicans and me so unfairly, always seeming to protect those who should not be protected. They are highly politicized. Cases don't matter. The judge does. As an example, how is this absolutely terrible Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Too Late Powell not even allowed to be investigated for the horrible job he does? Because there's no crimes. So Judge Booseberg steps in, and if this happens once a decade, I'd be shocked. A chief judge looks at the evidence, the lack of evidence, even at the low level of probable cause, which is to get a search warrant, and says it is obvious that the predominant reason was to harass Jerome Powell, not because there's any indication of a crime, and gave the Department of Justice a second bite at the apple, a second opportunity to present to Judge Booseberg more evidence, even in camera, without showing it to the defense. Just show me, the judge said. And they didn't take him up on the offer because there's no more evidence to provide to show there was any crime committed in Jay Powell overseeing 2 building renovations of the Federal Reserve Complex in Washington. Look, magnesium is something most of us lack. And if you're taking the drugstore variant, you're still not getting the full picture. Industrial farming, chronic stress, and everyday aging all make it worse. Most supplements only use one form of magnesium, but magnesium comes in many forms that support your body in different ways. That's why you need to try Qualia Magnesium Plus. It combines 10 bioavailable forms of magnesium with more than 70 trace minerals for comprehensive full-spectrum support. Sleep deeper, think sharper, recover faster, support muscle strength, a steadier mood, and balanced energy metabolism. It's not just a sleep supplement. It's a full-body magnesium system built for modern living so you can feel your best every day. Look, since I added Qualia Magnesium Plus to my routine, I'm feeling easier recovery from workouts and a calm, more centered wind down at night. It's been a supportive addition to my daily wellness routine. Experience the most trusted magnesium for purity, potency, and performance. Plus, it's non-GMO, vegan, and gluten-free, making it a choice you can feel good about. Go to qualialife.com/legalaf for 50% off. But for Judge Booseberg to issue that order, that 26-page memo, and strike the criminal investigation effectively, or as Janine Pirro says, let's play the clip of Janine Pirro whining about the immunity that's now been bathed over her words, over Jerome Powell by this federal judge. Play the clip.
The American public is fed up with public monies that seem to go into a black hole, especially in D.C., where no one is held accountable. One of the age-old tools that all prosecutors have to investigate any crime, including cost overruns, is a grand jury subpoena. Today, however, in Washington, an activist judge has taken that tool away from us. By inserting himself and preventing the grand jury from even obtaining, let alone hearing evidence, he has neutered the grand jury's ability to investigate crime. As a result, Jerome Powell today is now bathed in immunity, preventing my office from investigating the Federal Reserve. This is wrong, and it is without legal authority.
Now, similarly, because of improper appointment of prosecutors that Donald Trump handpicks to go after his political enemies, a judge in New York, Lorna Schofield, found that the Department of Justice could not investigate Attorney General Letitia James's office, the Attorney General office in New York, as somehow violating civil rights for Donald Trump or others, because she found that John Sarconi, like Alina Habba, like Lindsay Halligan, were improperly, illegally appointed as U.S. attorneys and kicked those subpoenas. So we've got judges, Schofield, Booseberg, Curry. We've got grand juries in D.C., Richmond, and Norfolk, Virginia, and presumably in Miami, in Florida, who are not indicting or refusing to indict based on what the U.S. attorney is bringing forward. Now, for 99% of my 35-year plus career, the federal government could always be trusted. We even had a doctrine related to it, the doctrine of regularity. They could be trusted. You may not agree with them. You might slap your forehead with your hand on some of their maneuvers, but you didn't doubt their ethics. You didn't doubt their veracity, their candor, their truthfulness, right? When they said that they represented the United States of America. That's gone. That's gone. No judge takes at face value anything that the Department of Justice says. Nothing. Especially and certainly senior leadership in Washington. Now, what we're watching are judges going out of their way now, and this is in the last several months, complimenting assistant U.S. attorneys, the junior lawyers, if they feel that they've been doing their job properly, haven't been lying to the court, haven't been misleading the court, have been prepared in court, understand the law and the facts in court, don't try to deceive the court, are candid with the court and uphold their own oath. They're literally complimenting them in courtrooms, in orders, in opinions, in postings to the docket, on the federal docket we can all see. Why are they doing that? To encourage a resistance in the form of doing their job. Now, there's also that going on. Even though Donald Trump has effectively gotten rid of 6,000 or 7,000 people in the Department of Justice, many who have quit rather than violate their oath of office or ethics, there's a group that have stayed in and have refused in certain offices to do the bidding of leadership in Washington, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and all the other deputies in Washington, have refused to seek indictments against people who they believe in doing so would violate the Department of Justice manual or the principles of federal prosecution. That seems to be the problem, for instance, in the Southern District of Florida, and why they haven't been able to indict John Brennan, the former CIA director, is because some U.S. attorneys, their assistant U.S. attorneys, are standing up against the handpicked MAGA U.S. attorney, Jason Redding Quinones, and basically telling them they're not bringing the indictments. And that may be going on as well for Adam Schiff in California, as we're now into month 16 or so, 17 or so of the Trump administration. We'll follow it all right here on MeidasTouch. Come over to Legal AF. No outside investors. Just need you to hit the subscribe button, help us continue to grow our channel. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.